For United fans everywhere, this is the ultimate football app for you. For match highlights, interviews, and the best Man United videos and podcasts. Download the free United Reds app now from the App Store and Google Play.
Yeah!
The shout now. Well done, Bobby Charlton. Well done, Manchester United.
Beckham. It's a Sheringham. And Solskjaer has done it! Bobby Saar saved it! United again! Ready! A magnificent goal by Robin Van Persie!
Welcome to United Hour, your official Red Cafe podcast for all things Manchester United. I'm your host, Nick.
I'm Colm.
I'm David.
And I'm Raees.
Yeah, we've got a four-man pod this week. I think it might be the first time this season we've got four on. Everybody wants to do it now, eh?
I like the way David just pulled rank on Raees there.
Yeah.
I thought I'd be polite and let David go in.
Thanks, Raees. I appreciate it, bud.
That's it, yeah. With four people, it can all become a bit messy, but that's it. And nobody wants to be left out of a Derby win podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Recording this on Monday nights, we've had 24 hours to think about things. And yeah, I've had 24 hours to recover from my hangover because, yeah, I was at the match. In fact, with Alex, who's, I guess, still a vital member of the podcast team, even though I think he's only managed to record once this season. But yeah, he was the beneficiary of one of my mates being last minute ill. And so, yeah, got to see our first home Derby win in 5 years, which is, yeah, far too long to have gone without a win. And now everybody's throwing out the plaudits. First time I think we've done the double over City in the league for, I can't remember how many years they said now, 10 years or something possibly.
Yeah, 10 years.
So, yeah, a lot of crazy stats being thrown around. And yeah, we will get on to obviously talking about Ole, but let's focus on the match first. We did our predictions at the end of the last one. I think, Colm, actually, I remember your kind of headphones dropped out at some point, but just before you did, you'd said, I think we're going to spank Derby and we're then going to get spanked by City. That had been those were your last words, I think, on last week's podcast.
Must have been those headphones playing up, because I'm pretty sure I said we're going to spank Derby and then we're definitely also going to spank City.
But no, actually, look, going into this match, I thought, speaking to a lot of people were actually like relatively confident, whereas when we beat City earlier in the season, everybody was like, how many are we going to lose by? And it was like a shock even to me, and I was like, normally the most optimistic and strongly Ole, and I still wasn't expecting much from that game. And we really pulled it out, whereas this one, no, there was a lot more of a feeling, chatting to all people in the pub pre-match, people were like, no, yeah, look, we've got nothing to fear here, we're on a good run, let's see where we go. So, yeah, but that actually kind of worried me then pretty much, because then you start thinking, we're a bit too confident. Let's see what happens. But, yeah, I felt even more confident when I saw the lineups, because I was pretty happy to see Kevin De Bruyne missing. I did even then was pretty shocked to see like Mahrez on the bench, seeing as De Bruyne wasn't playing. Even people like Walker I expected to start, and, he's gone with Zinchenko. So, yeah, I was feeling like extra confident going into it. But yeah, how were you all feeling? Colm, were you feeling confident after that?
Much more after seeing KDB wasn't going to play, because I think without him, City are just a different animal and they just lack serious penetration. They have all this stunning build-up play, all this control, but there wasn't a whole pile of invention, and that was kind of borne out. When it came actually up to the game, I saw our squad, I saw their squad, and you just felt that they have probably taken a back seat as far as the league's concerned, and you certainly felt that we had more of a chance, although I felt it was maybe the right time to go forward back against them, because I sort of felt we kind of sucker punch Guardiola a few times with this similar tactic, and I thought, third time will probably not be the charm, but it played out pretty much like it always does now.
Yeah, and I actually thought it played out even better. Like, I know we didn't have a lot of possession, but yeah, we created far more chances. And in fact, by half time, I was even pretty disappointed that we were only one up. They had one earliest chance from like Sterling. And apart from that, Davide didn't really have a save to make for most of the game, I'd say. And whereas we could have really had more chances if there'd been a couple of balls squared to Bruno, who was shouting from both James and Martial various times. Raees, how did you see the game? Did it play out how you expected?
Initially, I had it as a 1-1 draw, but similar to yourself, Nick, as soon as I saw the lineups, I thought, bloody hell, like City have almost waved a white flag with that team selection. Their bench looked incredibly strong, but similar to what Colm said, without KDB, there's no party. He's someone who provides purpose to City's possession. He provides the penetration. He dictates the play. And especially with David Silva aging as well, so he's not in the team either. The two directors and conductors of their play were not on the pitch, which completely played into our hands. So we were able to sit back, yes, like we normally do, but there was real no fear of them being able to penetrate us. And I'm surprised Bruno didn't end up strangling Daniel James and Martial for some of the missed passes. I mean, seriously, we should have won maybe 4-5-0. I know that sounds silly, but it was literally that easy the way we were counter-attacking them and the space that Bruno was finding himself in. So yeah, just before the game, having seen the lineups, I did expect us to win. Even then, I didn't expect it to be that easy, the way we made it look.
Yeah, I mean, in the second half, there was a lot of kind of pressure to soak up, especially. But yeah, that first half, like I said, even talking to people at half time and all, we were actually kind of disappointed only to be one up.
Clever free kick. And a goal! Not too clever from the goalkeeper, Martial. Has squeezed this one in. And Manchester United, who had a spell of superiority leading up to that free kick, have now made it count with the opener at Old Trafford.
The pass is wonderful. The contact is good, but the goalkeeper should save it. It's a simple one for him. He makes a right mess of it.
Do you put it down to a great strike, or is the keeper to blame there, David?
A bit of both, to be honest. I mean, I think it came straight from the training ground, that goal. You could see, watching the replay back, Martial was just looking at Aguero and waiting for him to look away so that he can get in behind him. So I think they've been working on that. Looks like they've been working on their friendship as well. The two of them seem to be in pretty good cahoots with one another. So probably came right for the training ground, that move. But I mean, anything that you're not expecting and then hit low off of the shin, it's difficult to get down to. I do think Ederson should still save it. He had an absolute nightmare yesterday, which did benefit us. But you can chalk it up to a bit of ingenious play with Fernandes. And with the thing with Martial's finish, even though he kind of shinned it, it's still difficult to have that ball come over your shoulder and connect with it, right? I mean, that's such a difficult skill to pull off. So even just getting it on target was success for me. The fact that we got the goal, and it was amazing to see that. But I think you have to put it down to pretty bad goalkeeping, and you see the rest of his game yesterday, and his mind, along with a few of the other City players' mind, just wasn't on the ball yesterday at all. I think I said at the end of the podcast last week that if a weaker City team shows up and then maybe expect us to scrape a win, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, you've seen in that game why Cancelo hasn't been starting over Walker the whole game, completely ineffective. Otamendi was just looked all out of sorts. I think he's been hard to call him a goodbye. And I remember when we were interested in him, and now you see and you think, thank God we never got him, because he's just so erratic. And no, their heads were out of it. They'll miss that creativity from Kevin De Bruyne and Silva. Foden really didn't take his chance to step up in the Premier League after his man of the match performance in the Carling Cup or the League Cup final.
I thought it was slightly harsh on Foden because as much as he's a City player and you hate to say it, I quite like him, but he's not a right winger. He's a 10.
Yeah, that's true.
They didn't really pay with a 10, so I thought it was just really odd from Guardiola. I thought he got it obviously completely wrong on numerous fronts, but it made all sense in the world with no KDB to play Mahrez wide right because they have no one else that gives that direct threat. Even Sterling now has become so functional that he doesn't really do anything on his own. He's just there to tap things in, for which Kevin De Bruyne puts on a plate for him. And I think that's why he's slightly struggled this season. But it made all the sense in the world to have Mahrez cutting in on his left and giving us problems, which he eventually did. And also Jesus has been in great form, and have Foden in the middle where you want them. But for 60 minutes, they just did very little until they actually made that change.
No, yeah, and like I said, we felt pretty comfortable. I mean, that first half goal was right in front of me and Alex. It was actually, I've heard a lot of people say, look, this was like such a great atmosphere that we heard on the TV, and it's often different like when you're in the ground because it depends where mics are, which part of the ground you're in, and it was actually slightly kind of tense earlier on in the kind of game, but yeah, after we scored the goal, then yeah, from then on our fans were like on full voice, and yeah, and it was a great time to obviously be there for watching over there. I don't know how you guys heard all the atmosphere coming through on the TV.
I watched it in the pub. I thought it was quite tense up until about the 60th or 70th minute when City really started getting on top of us. I remember there was a time when we just couldn't get out, and it was like the fans just were like, just totally saw what was maybe going to happen and just went absolutely mad. And it was all you could hear from then on. I was right under a speaker in a noisy bar, but it just seemed to me as loud as I'd heard it in a long time. But for me, it was more the latter stages of the second half where it really got absolutely frenzied in terms of just trying to, I think, cajole the players, because we started to look very leggy, I thought, and that was when the crowd really started to come into it, because I think they were just trying to get that wee bit more, and you kind of saw players who were nearly bent over out of breath, put in that little extra sprint to get out and press and to step out from the back, and clearly that, singing the songs at the absolute loudest would do for a player, and that was quite cool. And then, I mean, as the game went on and it became maybe more apparent that we were going to hold on, it just seemed to build until the release with McTominay. But no, I mean, the atmosphere sounded unbelievable to me, but I was literally sat under a massive speaker in the bar. So
yeah, it's probably a good time actually to talk about in general the atmosphere and everything at the ground this year. I mean, I've actually not managed to go as many times as I would usually, having been out the country a lot for work and that kind of thing. But there's been a big change this year that a lot of people might not know about. There's like a new group called the Red Army, TRA. And they're kind of like styling themselves as like the United Ultras nowadays. So they've been given a section out by the Stretford end, and they're calling it the Stretford end right side. And like match by match, you have to kind of apply to get a ticket in that section. So it's become a kind of like an away kind of match thing where every game you have to apply. And there's only like, I can't remember how many seats exactly, but I think maybe 1,000, 2,000 maximum, something like that. And these guys are actually making a massive difference. I mean, they kind of came from the whole idea of the J Stand singing section. And even though that didn't go totally to plan, it improved a lot of things, but they've kind of moved on from there. And this is like the new, they don't like calling themselves a singing section. So yeah, that's why the name is the Red Army. But sometime I have been in there once this season. It was for a Europa League game, and it's still a really good atmosphere, even though normally those were the quietest games you get all season. And they have a lot of rules and regulations, and sometimes I think, it's a bit too extreme. But yeah, maybe that's the kind of thing you need to kind of bring that atmosphere back to Old Trafford. And yeah, even though normally in these big games you get a big atmosphere anyway, I think this was the time where all round you've heard everybody saying what a great atmosphere. And yeah, I do think the guys who are in charge of this stuff over there need to take a lot of credit for really getting the atmosphere going again at Old Trafford. And I think next season they're going to be getting a bit more of a bigger section, and we still have some kind of good atmosphere back in J Stand where the singing section started as well, even though a lot of people have moved out of there to join the Red Army side of it. But no, in general, like I say, the atmosphere this year has been as good as it's been for a long time. Even, I think, Colm, you came in the singing section, was it last year or a couple of years ago?
Yeah, maybe a few times, thanks to your good grace, and I've always been impressed with it compared to, I suppose, my normal experiences, because I don't have access to tickets so easily. Would normally always be one of the two side stands, Felix Ferguson stand, something like that, and it's just totally different, obviously. But I was always very impressed with the J stand. To me, the singing section I thought worked fantastically well. It was always a much more kind of raucous and emphatic experience, even in more dull games as you do get, than I'd experienced previously in years of going and being in just the very sort of random seats, maybe up in the bleachers or just kind of out of the way in family seats. So I always thought it was class, but I've never actually sat Stretford end, so I would love to do that next time. Yeah, but for the rest of the season, it's not really a big issue because we're going to be playing behind closed doors with face masks on, so it's no reason to worry about it.
Did actually, yeah. I was speaking to some people I knew kind of abroad where a lot of things have been closed down, and they were kind of quite surprised that I was going off to a match with 75,000 people.
They give us absolutely everything they've got every time they play, and that's, you can't ask for more. We're going to improve. We're going to improve as a team. We're going to improve. They're going to improve as players, because there's 2 or 3 times today head up and we score goals. There's twice Dan James could just square it once for Bruno, one for Anthony. Anthony should square it for Bruno. Those little things, they'll come, but it's a privilege because they want to learn as well, and they listen to the advice we give them. At times you'd like to defend with the ball in the team sometimes, but I'm not going to complain.
Second half I thought was quite kind of like we had to soak up a lot more pressure. And do you think we purposely sat off, or do you think City played better? Raees, what do you think second half? Because I don't know, like being in the stadium again, for me, all that play was then in front of me because that was the side. So we're getting a lot of pressure from City, a lot. And I think Colm, like you said, it was probably around City made a couple of changes and then you started worrying like, look, we need to make some changes here because you felt like the pressure was starting to get a little bit much and getting why, you're worried that goal is going to come. And yeah, Ole left it quite late to make his changes. But what do you think, Raees? Was it just we sat off and were trying to invite them to keep going on the break, or did they just start playing a bit better second half?
I think firstly they did start playing better. I think the changes made a difference. Someone like Mahrez he's a game changer. So if you give him the ball, he's just gonna keep running at you and keep eating up yards and putting the other team on the back foot, regardless of if we had positive intentions to go toe to toe with them. But with his ability on the ball, it just forced us backwards. And then I think we started to become a bit leggy in certain areas of the pitch. Matic, who I thought had a good game, suddenly started to become tired. And in the first half, we would sort of pick and choose our moments to press. We didn't press that often, but when we did, it would be Fred leading it from the midfield. And then Matic would sort of push forward with him, backing him up. But Matic suddenly ran out of legs. So we had to just kind of just sit back and look out for any gaps in front of the defence. And I think we almost got too carried away with doing that, which we have seen with Oli, where the team becomes almost too negative, and he does take an awful long time to put substitutions on. I think subs should have come on earlier. I would have put Igalo on a bit earlier just to give us a bit of an outlet in terms of hold-up play.
Yeah, that's in the ground. That's what we were actually kind of saying, that I think it might be a good time to bring in a Garlo, somebody exactly what you're saying. I mean, City made their changes around the hour mark with Jesus and Mahrez coming in. And yeah, as I said, I was ecstatic to see Mahrez not starting. For me, it was kind of strange decision for Pep, especially with KDB out, that neither David Silva nor Mahrez, who were for me they're more kind of creative players that you'd actually worry about, weren't in there. And it wasn't until nearly the 80th minute that Ole come and made his changes. So there was a kind of almost like 20 minute period there where we were really like, come on, Ole, make a change. And then I was quite surprised to see Bailly, and especially Bailly. I wasn't that surprised to see McTominay getting ready to come on, but Bailly did surprise me a bit. I mean, David, were those the kind of changes you were expecting, or were you more thinking it was Igalo time?
I thought it was Igalo time as well. I think when he did come on, you saw what, like, would it have really hurt to bring him on 10, 15 minutes earlier? You see how capable he was at holding up the ball. And we spoke about it last week as well. You see the first time he gets a hold of it, the next time the defenders give him a yard because they know they're not going to get around him. He just brings such a... He looks so calm on the ball. Like it's like he's been playing that role his entire life at a high level. But he's came on in the derby at 1-0 and he just slowed things down for us. And I think he could have done it 10, 15 minutes earlier. But to be honest, when I was watching the game, there's been times when we've played City in the past where you're just like biting your nails because you know they're about to slide a ball in behind. They're about to create something that's going to be wave after wave of attack and shot and goal. And for whatever reason, I never had that feeling yesterday. I always felt like they were just passing it without ever offering anything in behind. And I know they had Jesus almost get in once, and then Aguero had his very, very close to being a onside goal. They got chopped off. But it was weird. I didn't feel that nervousness that I've felt watching us against City before, or watching us against big teams where we're holding on to a lead. I was like, no, we're going to go over the line. And then when we did eventually bring a Gallo on, I thought he was brilliant. I mean, I don't think he maybe gave the ball away once and held it up maybe 3 or 4 times, did a little swivel on the halfway line, got the crowd going. It's just, he's a great weapon to bring on. But yeah, we could have done with seeing that a little sooner. You saw with De Gea's long punt down the field that he just brought out of the sky, like expert Zidane perfection, grace. It was amazing to see. And you felt really could have done that from whenever he came on, and that would have been a good outlet to have 10 minutes ago. But no, I think the substitutions were, like Raees says, Ole does have a tendency to leave it a bit late to make his changes. It seems to be in his management style. I don't know what's going to make him change that, but it does seem a theme that we make our substitutions on average 5-10 minutes later than your average team would. Don't know why it is, but he just seems to be sticking to that.
Yeah, I mean, the introduction of Bailly especially was slightly strange because, it meant a lot of players had to shift around. And we kind of ended up with, James as the furthest player forward, as Martial went off as well, loading the midfield. And then Bailly had to switch into the kind of right back, the right centre back. Maguire there, Shaw then playing on the other side. So it was like 3 or 4 players all had to move around, and it was something that worried me at the time. And I thought, is this going to work out? Is everybody going to be ready to deal with it?
I wasn't too worried in that. I thought it was pretty obvious that from the introduction of Mahrez, Williams was at sea, completely at sea. I mean, he was breaking ankles, he was being sent for taxis. Mahrez just had him on toast. And I don't mean that as a huge criticism. Williams thought he acquitted himself very well for 60 minutes.
And was a fresh Mahrez versus
exactly.
Williams.
It's just tough. And I also think Williams and Shaw still don't have that 5 at the back, wing back, left centre back absolutely nailed down, in terms of who needs to be where when. So I kind of fell for him a little bit, but there was a time where Mahrez literally just beat him upside the head about 3 times in a row, and Williams was slipping, falling all over his shot, then overcommitting. And it's just a tough ask, big ask. And I think Ole saw that and just knew that if they were going to score, Mahrez did get in behind him, slipped it across to Sterling, who I think has to score at 1-0. And he just doesn't get enough on it along the 6-yard box. And I think after that, Ole knew that he absolutely had to change it. So moving Shaw to left back and playing with 3 orthodox centre backs in the middle, whilst I understand it was more that Martial came off for McTominay at that stage, which was the bigger issue, I think, Nick, that you're alluding to, in terms of having to shuffle everyone around, because Bailly for Williams to move Shaw to left back and Bailly into the middle. I understand what you mean about Bailly playing on the right side, Lindelof coming right over to the left side, and Maguire in the middle, but I don't think that's a big drama. What I thought was quite odd was that we just took off our number 9, played with Dan James, kind of, I say leading the line. He was leading the line from 20 yards inside his own half at that stage. But to me, that was a slightly odd choice. I thought we could have seen. I understand why you maybe didn't want to use all 3 subs in that way, because you wouldn't necessarily. You want to freshen up the midfield with McTominay, and you want to bring a Gallo on, but at the same time, then if someone gets injured, with Luke Shaw cramping up and all the rest of it, and I think that's mainly what it was, that he just didn't want to be caught out with playing with a man down for 5 or 10 minutes. I agree. I think the subs were slow, but at the same time, I think the outcome defines the winner, basically. And
history is written by the victors.
Exactly. Whilst he could have been punished possibly in a hypothetical, he wasn't, and it went fine, and it looked great. So I wouldn't take too much from him in that sense.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's talk about some of the top performers. I mean, it was actually a great team performance, I thought, because at the end of the match, we were kind of chatting after, saying, who do you think was man of the match? And I didn't actually think there was any clear standout player. And then after looking at who Sky chose and whatever, I think there was quite a few different choices. I think Martial was there. People are talking about the midfield. The one I would like to pick out, though, is Wan-Bissaka, who I thought had a epic game against Sterling on that side, and then again afterwards he was up against Mendy as well, who was getting quite a lot of the ball late on in the game, and there was a lot of stuff coming on from that right side. He for me would probably be the one I would pick out. I mean, Raees, who was your man of the match?
It's a tough one. Wan-Bissaka had a solid game. I think Fred had a good game. He had some very good through ball passes.
Stats wise, Fred had an unbelievable game. And I'm always wary of going too heavy on stats, but in terms of forward passes, final third passes, turning the ball over, interceptions, he had it's freakish numbers.
Yeah. So he looked it, he looked at the heart of every good thing that we were doing, and I think his pressing was standout, his ball carrying. I mean, some of the vision he showed with his passes, I just think he wasn't rewarded enough for his passing. I think Bruno was very unlucky to not have ended up with a man of the match performance, because if he had been passed the ball in those right moments, he could have ended up with a hat-trick or a brace, in addition to that amazing assist he pulled off for the Martial goal. But instead he's ended up sort of not being in the limelight, and they said he had a quiet game, but he is incredibly peed off with some of his teammates after that game, because he could have been the star of the show. I thought Martial was good. I think he started off a bit sluggishly, but once he started to get going, he was dangerous. They didn't really know what to do with him, and I think he likes playing against City for some reason. I think the fact that they come on to him and they're not a physically aggressive team, allows him to just run with the ball on the counter, and I think he enjoys playing against them.
Well, I think it's like, when he's playing against City, he's not actually playing like number 9 as he has been playing. He's coming in from the left side.
More like an Henri, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Ole's done this a few times. Martial is very much coming from the left. James is on the right, and it's actually Bruno who's the kind of central. I don't know whether you'd say it's like
False
nine. Not exactly, but something like that. And I think Martial feels much more comfortable coming in from that wide position, and he's not necessarily, as you see it, kind of like I say, when you're in the stadium, you see sometimes the setup and all a little bit differently than you might see it on TV. And it was absolutely clear again and again that like the front three was Martial left, Bruno in the middle, and James on the right. And it was exactly how it was coming through. And often, Bruno would be the furthest forward at certain points. It's worked in several of these big games. Can remember that I think the very first time we saw it might have been Spurs or something, I think it was. And at that time, it was obviously Rashford and Martial. Even though James didn't have a great game, I just still think that kind of in these games, that tactic has worked for us time and time again. And actually suits Martial a lot better, I think, really. Any other different shouts for man of the match there? We've had a few mentions.
No, I would have gave it to Wan-Bissaka, but I think Dan James was 2 or 3 good decisions away from being standout man of the match. I thought his industry was spectacular. He offered a lot. He made such stupid decisions 2 or 3 times. He could have had easily 2 or 3 assists, and we'd be talking about him or Bruno as man of the match, right? But I did appreciate the work that he put in. He led from the front really well. He was closing down well. He was getting in behind. He was pulling on the shoulder. He was making sure there was an outlet for Wan-Bissaka when he won one of his 2,000 tackles against Sterling. Like, it was just... He just made such stupid decisions. I mentioned it in a thread that he must have a hell of a goal bonus, because the greed for a couple of them was just... I couldn't get my head around it. This is a guy who's demonstrated before. He knows how to bring other guys into play. He's got it just made no sense why he went for goal.
Exactly that, and he hasn't been proven to be a greedy player at all so far in his United career. If anything, quite the opposite. I think he's been... I think just through having played so many minutes and been kind of thrust into that right wing spot, he's become actually unnecessarily timid in his play, and particularly recently, and that's been something that's really frustrated me. I think the James you saw at the start of the year, and certainly the James you saw last year at Swansea, although it's tough to hold him to a championship standard, you've seen less and less as the season went on. I think he's kind of regressed in his actual willingness to take people on, go at them, have a dig. At the start of the season, he was just shooting from anywhere, and that's why he got a few goals kind of early on. He was just whipping balls from the edge of the box and having a go. And I think the more we've played him, the more he's just gone for the safe bet and just constantly laying it back to Wan-Bissaka, constantly just firing it across as soon as he got it without ever really thinking about it. And actually, he might have been better served doing that. But I thought even in his wastefulness in those positions, and there was one or two where he played it high where he should have whipped it across Martial. The cutback for Bruno was borderline unforgivable, as Martial's was in the first half. But I mean, he had Otamendi on toast a few times, and he was actually willing to run. And I know when he plays into space, he's a far better player than when we come up against compact defences, and City were anything but compact. But just seeing him actually wanting to go in and drive past a player, wanting to win a penalty, wanting to get to the byline, and made it such a more encouraging performance. And to do that against City was very encouraging as well, because I do think he has been pretty stagnant for a while, and I don't really blame him for that, because I think he's played far too many minutes for the kind of player he is coming to the kind of club he has done. But I thought it was actually a return to kind of what I want to see from him. I just want to see him at the bare minimum just run at people, and run past them, and just even if he loses it, it's the same with Wan-Bissaka. I'm not asking for him to be a super technical, super quality attacker. I just need him to just try and put them in positions they don't want to be in, because Otamendi just didn't want to be at Old Trafford at all. He had an absolute horror show, and James was a big part of it.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I mean, the one thing actually we forgot to mention earlier on was there was this, Fred penalty shout and ends up getting a yellow card.
Penalty.
For
absolute stonewaller.
Stonewall penalty.
Again, we're in the stadium and we don't have any idea. And in fact, I'd actually gone down into the concourse to watch some of the highlights, and they didn't even show that because it wasn't even considered anything to show.
The replay showed clearly that there was contact in the 100% motion of the game. You could be forgiven for thinking it was a dive, but what is the point of VAR? VAR means you don't have to make that snap decision, and yet we've kind of established it with a set of rules, which means, the whole clear and obvious thing, you can only really look at it if it's a goal scored. So the only way to ever come back and look at that was if the penalty was given and scored, kind of thing, and it's just such a daft system. And, ultimately, the VAR check, once it's completed, maybe it's not clear and obvious that the contact wasn't enough, even though I still think that is clear and obvious, but there's no definition of clear and obvious, so that's where you fall down as well. But to me, it wasn't so much the decision as the booking.
Exactly.
That's what really rubs salt in the wound, particularly when you think that Fred's having a monster game. His whole game depends on him being dynamic and snapping at challenges, loves to play in the front foot and nip into people. And I just had visions of this red card that was coming, the second yellow, the whole way through the second half. And it happened just before half time when, we should have had that penalty. Martial should have pulled it back for Bruno. We should have been 2 or 3 up. I was livid at half time. I was absolutely fuming because it was such a huge game for us, I think, and such a huge game for Ole and the rest of our season that you just didn't want it to be derailed for anything other than, it's okay to be outplayed by City, that's not an issue, but to lose out, and I know they'll say the Bruno free kick for our goal wasn't a free kick, and I agree, but that just seemed so blatant to me to have that yellow card. It was infuriating, I thought.
Exactly, and for me, VAR is just such a mess. Even though we've benefited from it on several occasions this season of disallowed goals, I still hate it. I hope they do change the offside rule. Like I say, we've benefited from it that Aguero goal is not given. Personally, for me, I would actually like them to change the rules, and I don't like goals not being given because somebody's toe or shoulder or whatever is being given. I think Arsene Wenger has already been talking about changing this rule, and I hope that does get changed. Even though, like I say, we've benefited from it several times this year. But again, when you're in the stadium, VAR is just absolute bullshit. You're just sat there, you have no idea what's going on. You don't have a replay to look at. You're just sat twiddling your thumbs, waiting for some kind of announcement.
Screens in every stadium and a mic'd up ref. I just think it's non-negotiable at this stage. Take lessons from World Sport. It just works far
but to
better.
me, that's like a kind of, I don't know, it feels like an Americanization of everything, and I don't know, still.
I just think if you're going to have it, either don't have it and then don't have those things, that's fine. But if you're going to have it, it needs explanation. It absolutely needs explanation, because otherwise we'll always be in this situation of just being frustrated by it, because it won't be, at the moment you have this super scientific clinical thing being applied in a super unscientific way. It's basically like, people are just going, I thought that was a foul. I thought that was a dive. Book him. VAR clearly shows it's not a dive and probably should have been a penalty. Just play on, forget about it. Who cares? And that's basically the system that we have. That's what happened there. And how is that?
It's not even probably, Colm. It's one of the worst decisions I have ever seen on a football pitch. That's how stupid it was. I mean, I don't want to waste too much time on this discussion, but it was one of the most stonewall. I'm going to end up punching a wall when I think about what happened with that.
Yeah, and as you say, if a second yellow card comes or something, how it could have affected the game would have been crazy. And even then, because as a player, if you've got a yellow,
you play totally different.
There's a few things you won't go for that you might have gone for if you didn't have a yellow card. So it does make a difference even at that point.
Oh, straight to McTominay. There's a goal to shoot at. There's a goal to find. And Manchester United have done the double in the derby. Scott McTominay with an extraordinary finish.
But look, let's look at what does this game mean. And third time this season that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer beats Pep Guardiola. And I'm going to aim this at Colm and Raees, because both of you two have been on this podcast at various points this season talking about saying a manager who's not a good coach, doesn't know what he's doing tactically, doesn't have any kind of plan. And, after one or two big wins, you can say it's a one-off, but that's now 3 times against one of the, so-called greatest managers in the world at the moment that he's managed to out-battle him tactically. And I think they said it's actually only Klopp who's done this before, where it was like Dortmund versus Bayern, where 3 times in a season Pep has lost to him. It's never happened to him before in La Liga. It's never happened to him at any other time. This is only the second time.
Did Klopp finish 5th in that season?
No, no idea, to be honest, what the final outcomes were. But look, where I'm going for this, and I want to hear. I mean, Colm, you have actually slightly softened your stance, I felt, in the past couple of podcasts.
Yeah, of course.
So, Raees, you've not been on a couple of times, so I want to hear where are you at on Ole at the moment? Because you did definitely go on the Ole out camp at some point.
Big time. And I'm an emotional man. But I have eyeballs. I see how we're playing, and I think this 10-game run is superb evidence in the corner of people who are saying this is a project. Ole's the man. Given time, I think that's pretty hard to argue at this stage. Now, I still definitely want to see out the season until May because I'm so concerned about another false dawn. And having a bad run of form doesn't mean that the work being done isn't good, but being able to kind of eke out any consistency in an entire season for me is still a big issue. And 10 games, whilst a very good sample size, still doesn't just completely flip the charts on what is likely to be our record lowest points total. And I appreciate all the arguments that are going to come. The gutting out the squad has left us in a very fragile place, but it's been a worthwhile endeavour, I truly believe. The recruitment has been extremely good. They just probably haven't brought in enough, but that we have to live in the realms of reality and not fantasy FIFA land, as a lot of people want to with transfers. So I don't really have any issues with that either. All the signings have been good to excellent, in my opinion. And the injuries have been bad, and the Pogba situation has been difficult. So I totally get all that. And now, for the first time, I do see better football at a base level. And it's as easy to say better players equals better football. Bruno, obviously, of course, is a massive part of that. But we spoke a few weeks ago about how we have been actually defensively extremely good this year. If you look at XG, we are outperforming most people.
Bruno came.
Yeah, exactly. And that's obviously because we invested heavily in defenders, but it's still something that deserves merit. Fred has become exceptional. I mean, I can't describe enough how I think he is so easily our player of the year and should be in the Premier League player of the year, but probably won't be. He is at the moment looking like Kante's work ethic and endeavour with just a little bit more quality that Kante probably lacks, and it's high praise and he still has to maintain it through in the next year. But I mean, I don't think the most positive or optimistic person would have seen that coming. I don't even think Ole saw that coming. I mean, he jokingly laughed about him feeling like he was going to be dead before Fred scored a goal. And, there's truth in that joke because I don't think Ole was his biggest fan when he started last year, and yet he has played himself into great form. Matic has come back from the dead to be a vital member who's been absolutely fantastic the last 4 years. And Ole's definitely done great work with the strikers. So there are a lot of positives there. I still have slight reservations, but they are eking away. They are eking away to the point where I'm much more comfortable now with the thought of Ole being in charge next year. If we finish the season in the same vein that we are currently in, then I would have so few objections. I have slight concerns that we'll maybe miss out on Poch, who's in my eyes a seriously good appointment for whoever gets him. But it would be totally unfair to get rid of Ole if he continues on in this vein of form. Also, I think the performance in the big games, to me, it's been proven it's a feather in the cap, but it's not the be all and end all. It's not the be all and end all. It's more important to me in these last 8 games we dispatch your Villas, your Sheffield Uniteds. No disrespect to them, it's a 6-pointer. Your Brightons, whoever we have left to play. Those games for the second half of the season have been more important to me than the big games because he's put that down on paper that he can beat any big team.
And yeah, I do think actually those big games, like, they become more in importance when, all right, we're not challenging for the league. And, it's a situation that's flipped from how it used to be for years where we were always running away with the league and we'd often lose these big games. It means more to the team that's coming from behind. And, we still used to lose to Liverpool. We still used to lose Manchester derbies when City were absolutely nowhere near us.
We said at the top of the show, not having won at home in a Manchester derby for 5 years, was it, or something?
Yeah, 5 years.
You wouldn't. Obviously City have been extremely good for that period, and we've had our worst period in recent memory, but it's still a very galling thing to hear. But I do think another thing is, and I know I've given Ole a lot of stick for his post-match comments, and I still don't necessarily love the way he talks, and I don't necessarily love his demeanour and what I view as his kind of control of everything. But him talking post-match about the kind of players he wants and the kind of Manchester United he wants in terms of being humble, hardworking, but with quality, with intent, with passion to attack and to do things quickly. Recently it's a lot easier to buy into those words because I think you are seeing it more. And just his kind of chat about the connect between what squad we're beginning to see and the fans, which I thought was very, very apparent. As we know, we've already spoken about the noise in the ground and the support and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I don't know, like in the ground, the support has been there all season. All season, the atmosphere has been better than it has been. As I said time and time again on this podcast, like amongst match goers, it was like, you bet. I was even surprised myself that it would be like there was barely 2 out of 10 people who were talking about Ole out when you went to the match. It was like 80% were still, and that's going back in an awful period, like in like whenever it was, October, November.
It's not even just the Ole in or Ole out, and I think that's a reduction, and it's one we're so keen to. And the whole media is so keen to jump on because it's an easy talking topic, and people want to see it, people want to have a camp and all that kind of stuff. It's the support of the whole squad. And I mean, we spoke about this earlier today, but a lot of people now, I think, feel more connected to this squad in terms of young players coming through. Your Scott McTominay, obviously Rashford is always a huge fan favourite. That arm around the shoulder when you see Martial doing extremely well. Dan James, very lovable character. Maguire starting to look like a real strong leader in there, which is fantastic. Passer Fred, such a lovable character. And that builds, and you don't always have that. I don't necessarily feel that way about De Gea, about Pogba, about players who have just been shipped out, about Phil Jones, about Smalling. And it's not just because some are good or some are bad. You just have different feelings towards. It's all your team. It's all Manchester United. We all support them 100%, and we always want to do well.
But Colm, I was saying this to you 2 months ago, and you weren't agreeing with me in the slightest.
I don't think you were saying that because I'm sure I just put it.
I was saying exactly this. That these are players that I like. It's a team that I'm ready to get behind, even if we're not winning the league. I prefer this team than a team that we had under Mourinho that was winning things. I said exactly that on this podcast.
But I've never disagreed with that. It's just how I just expected more from the team. That was my issue. I just didn't think Ole was getting as much out of the team as he should do at that time. Even with the injuries, I just think.
All right, let's bring Raees in here now, because I know you were also very critical of Ole this season. So where are you at now, Raees?
Firstly, I was nowhere near as bad as Colm.
That's nonsense.
That's true.
Secondly, I've been adamant since Ole took over that he's the best manager we've had since Alex Ferguson. Now, that's not a great compliment considering how bad the other managers have been. But I remember a discussion with my brother-in-law where he spoke about how Mourinho's reign was underrated, how he's won trophies, and how Ole has not taken us anywhere close to that. Well, for me, it's about seeing the long-term aspects of what they've brought to the club. I couldn't see a future under Mourinho. I saw it as a very short-term plan that he had, and the club looked like it was heading towards ruin. The wrong players were being brought in. The environment was absolutely toxic. For me, Solskjaer has extracted the poison from the club. There's a unity amongst the fans. There's a unity in the squad. And he's slowly working towards getting the right players into the club and getting the wrong players out of it, as we are seeing with Lingard being pushed towards the sidelines. Hopefully we will see Pogba leave at the end of the season. So we're definitely moving towards a squad that feels more like Manchester United in terms of its culture. Yes, I had tactical issues with Ole as a coach, and there's still question marks as to whether long term is he a league title winning, Champions League winning tactical mastermind. Because at the moment, the tactics which he's deploying in the big games still to some degree are rudimentary. It soak up the pressure and then hit it on the counter. So it's not terribly sophisticated. However, credit must go to Ole for performances in individuals. For example, Maguire now seems to be kicking on in terms of he's refound his confidence on the ball. His defending seems to be more stable. Fred's developed leaps and bounds. He's actually showing his personality as a player. Martial's improved.
Wan-Bissaka's attacking output has improved massively.
Wan-Bissaka's crossing has become better as well in recent games. So we are finally beginning to see individual improvements in players. Also, Rashford has been better under Ole's management than any other manager. So he can actually point to the fact that he has improved players. So he does deserve some credit there. I also think what's played into his favour is the injuries to Rashford and Pogba in the recent run of games, because it's allowed him to build a more team-orientated structure in terms of playing. So he's not been able to just resort to using star players to get him out of it. Now, yes, Bruno is, a star player, but he's more of a team-orientated sort of player, and he's knitting things together, and he's knitting that side together in terms of passing and moving and creating that sort of little combination plays, which we just didn't see when the likes of Rashford and Pogba are in the team. They're more selfish individuals. So I think perversely those injuries have helped him more as a coach to create this more cohesive unit.
But I actually said like a lot of the season that I saw a lot of improvement and that I didn't agree, and that it was only when players got injured that then when things went downhill again.
I disagree. I think if Pogba was
blessing in disguise,
fit, and I don't think Ali would have had the balls to drop him, and I seriously don't think the team would be as cohesive as it looks now. So that's something which has been luck playing into Ali's favour and helped him as a coach, because it's allowed him to build that foundation of a team-orientated approach.
I don't think any of these things have helped in any way.
Help Fred? You don't think it's helped Fred?
No, I
don't. Fred, we don't have the Fred. We would not have the Fred we have if Pogba played all season, because Fred would still be on the bench and he would still be frozen out by Ole. It's a fact.
Well, I don't know, because you could still have like two players, whether it's McTominay and Fred, with Pogba playing further forward.
There was no indication that Pogba was really going to ever play. People have been kind of spouting this.
He started the season, it was true, he started the season with Pogba and McTominay in a two-man midfield, but it wasn't going that well. So there was going to be maybe other options that he was going to go for. He hadn't settled on anything at that time. So I don't think that it was just like forced out of that necessarily. I don't see there was any kind of blessing in disguise whatsoever. I think if Pogba had been available, we'd be in the top 4 right now. I think if Rashford had not got injured, that we'd be even like in the top 3 right now. So I don't see any blessing in disguise whatsoever out of these injuries. I actually think it's the only reason on why we're like, 5th, 6th or whatever it is, because those players were missing.
The future of the team, for the actual progression of the team, because it has to be a new team. And that's why, as tough as it is to say it, and it's not because we dislike Pogba because we think he's a pro player, anything like that, and even more so with David De Gea, although I entirely agree. It's also about wage structure. It's about kind of emotional baggage, I think, as well, the players carry from having played under so many unsuccessful managers in such an unsuccessful period. And that's why I totally agree with Raees. I would like to see both those players move on in the next year or two, in the next summer or two, because I think the team, whilst Dean Henderson might not be the answer or whatever it is, I think the team needs to be totally revitalised. I don't think this can be something you do halfway, basically.
Well, let's talk about De Gea, because we did actually have a question from, I think it was my only Solskjaer on Red Cafe, said, I want to hear our views about the goalkeeping situation, because there's a lot of people now saying, maybe we've seen the best of De Gea, and Henderson's doing really well over at Sheffield United, made a couple of crazy point-blank saves just this weekend gone. David, do you think Henderson is ready to be our number one?
I think he's ready to come and give De Gea a run for his money. From what I have seen of him, he has the necessary attributes to be a top quality goalkeeper. Made a few mistakes, but then again, what goalkeeper hasn't? Be interesting to see how he adjusted to the expectation at Old Trafford. It's a little bit different from playing at Bramall Lane every week. So, when I seen De Gea's performance yesterday, I know we were talking about man of the match. De Gea never got a shout. He made a couple of amazing saves yesterday. Like, he was kind of back to his old way. Didn't look too shaky with his distribution from his feet, which was good. And like the save he made from Jesus in the second half, his next one right in the bottom corner, and he's got down to it no problem. The guy is still a world-class goalkeeper, but I think like Raees and Colm alluded to, his status in the team as one of the highest earners. It creates a bit of a wedge between him and the rest of that cohesion that seems to be in the team. So I'm probably siding with those guys in terms of maybe Pogba being out of the team and De Gea being out of the team, as world-class as they are. It might be a good thing for team unity. But I don't think De Gea is going to go anywhere in the summer. I don't think we'd get anywhere near as much for him as we would have done in previous years as well. I don't know who's in the market for a goalkeeper like De Gea. So I think we're probably going to see him there, and maybe Henderson come in as a good number 2, but we've already got a good number 2 in Romero. So I'd maybe be inclined to maybe keep him at Sheffield United another season and then see how he progresses there. But I don't think that we have an urgent need for another goalkeeper. I think a much bigger need is to get David De Gea into that system that Borussia Dortmund have for their first touch and their passing and control, and just keep him there until he gets comfortable with the ball at his feet. Because if he's good at passing the ball out from the back and you don't have any reservations about giving the ball back to him, he goes from a world-class shot stopper to an all-round keeper. And I think I would much rather see his development with his distribution as opposed to getting another keeper in to give him a run for his money. Still think he's world-class, still think he's young enough to be effective. He doesn't seem like he's the type of personality like the way Pogba is, where kind of like it has to be all about him. Seems like he's a well-liked member of the squad. I don't know what it is that you guys see, if he's disruptive or not, but I'm quite happy with him being the Man United number one for next season.
Yeah, I personally would not expect that we're all of a sudden going to be selling De Gea and installing Dean Henderson as number one. I mean, the whole goalkeeper kind of succession thing is quite difficult. 'Cause in a lot of other positions, you can give certain players time from the bench, maybe like phase somebody in and out. Whereas at goalkeeper, it's a lot more difficult to do that. I mean, I think the only similar situation we've had in recent time was Chelsea had Courtois for all those years, didn't they? Who constantly was going out on loan, and they had Czech, and everybody was talking about when is this kind of succession going to be made. And they did kind of make that move over eventually. Did actually notice this week that they'd given Lee Grant a new contract. So I don't know what that says about what they're planning about the kind of goalie situation, or maybe they're seeing him more as almost like a goalie coach nowadays than even anything to do with the playing team.
I think the difficult thing with Henderson is that I don't think him coming back to United while De Gea's there suits anyone. It doesn't help De Gea, it doesn't help him. I really struggle.
I think he's even made comments himself saying that I don't want to come back and be a number two.
Well, now cream rises to the top, he said. I don't really know what he means. But, he clearly backs himself. I think a lot of people, maybe that irks them. They see a bit of the Pickford tiny T-Rex arms in him. They don't look dissimilar either. But, that kind of, I suppose, English arrogance that kind of sometimes throws people up the way, particularly when you're throwing the ball in your own net like Pickford, except when you're playing Manchester United. But I think it'd be quality. But it's very difficult, as you said, to manage that succession with goalkeepers, because with goalkeepers you just have your guy, and that's the best way. There's very few teams that can manage. You saw it a wee bit with Navas and Courtois when he went to Raees, and it just doesn't suit anyone. It's a confidence position where you need to know you're starting every week, and I just don't think, which is why United just have to be super careful, because you could lose Henderson. And it's not that he's irreplaceable. You can go and buy another keeper in a few years when De Gea is maybe more replaceable, but it would just be a shame. It would just be a shame. So it's a tricky one to navigate. But I agree. I don't think he's going anywhere this summer. It just started up a few rumours of 70 million to Real, but I don't see them.
Courtois has been good. That's the thing for Real Madrid. Courtois has been one of their best players this season. I don't know how intensely you've followed the Spanish league, but he's saved them a lot of times. He's been been one of their better players, Colm, honestly. Like they
even less likely then. Yeah, exactly. So where's he going?
Yeah, they don't need him. They're fine for goalkeepers. The only thing I would even entertain with De Gea would be if he was going back to Madrid, but it was Atletico and we're getting a straight swap for Oblak, because I think Oblak is almost just as good a shot stopper and a little bit better with his feet. But even then, what's the point? It's just his wages. We should never have gave him that much money, but I understand why we did, because we didn't want to lose him, right? And at that point, he was by far the best player in our team. Now we've got other guys stepping up, and you just kind of hope that he's taking his role in the squad well, and that difference in wages isn't causing a problem.
And I don't think there's any indication that he is disruptive.
Yeah, there's nothing like that. I don't see anything like that. He should be our number one. Being Henderson, he's done well, fair enough, but sorry, De Gea is still top 3 best goalkeeper in the world.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that at the moment. I'm not quite ready to be making that move, but it's difficult to say when do you make it and how can you make that kind of move over. It does probably have to happen at some point. But yeah, it depends whether Henderson's ready to wait around for that chance, I guess. I mean, yeah, there've been a couple of other contracts handed out this week. Just today, actually, saw I think Chong get a new contract. There's been a lot of talk about him leaving to Inter. He's a player that I personally have seen almost nothing from to think he's going to be a Manchester United first team player. I literally can't actually remember a young player having that many chances in the first team and doing so little, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, I think the only reason we're even giving him a new contract is so we can sell him and get some money for him rather than he walks away for free. But yeah, maybe he'll get another year or something. Like I say, I really don't see anything in him. I don't know if any of you disagree with that.
I do not.
He has to go on loan, simple as that. I mean, you can see a player in there potentially, but like you say, he's just been so below average every single time he's came onto the park. He just, I was talking to someone about this today, you see the way Billy Gilmore's came into the team at Chelsea, looks like a prime Xavi. Like it's crazy when you're good enough, you're old enough, and you just don't see that with Chong. Like, he's just, I don't know if he's trying too hard or what it is, but he hasn't done anything to justify being in the 18-man team sheet that goes in on weekends. So I hope the idea is to send him out on loan and then maybe make some money off him. But again, we don't know what the guy's like in training. I mean, maybe he tears it up on the training park and that's what Solskjaer sees in him. But for us as fans, the guy just looks underwhelming. And
yeah, he stayed anyway. I don't think it was totally official yet, but Ole said that more or less expected Matic to be staying for another season. And I think we talked about this last week, and then we all kind of agreed that he'd played well enough to be deserving an extension there. So I'm very happy to see him stay. He's been immense, like way better than I possibly expected, whereas a lot of us were kind of writing him off earlier in the season. Then there's also been this kind of story of Jude Bellingham, right? His parents been getting a show around Old Trafford. I think there's a lot of clubs all around Europe vying for his signature at the moment. Crazy numbers being talked about. How old is
16.
he? Like 17 or something?
Still
16, still 16. Is he playing every week for Birmingham? And that's your neck of the woods, isn't it, Raees? Have you been keeping an eye on this guy?
I have, yeah. He's playing pretty regularly for Birmingham. He's a big player for them.
What position is he exactly?
Centre mid is where he's playing, which for a 16-year-old to playing centre mid in a aggressive league like the Championship says a lot about how much confidence they have in him. I mean, this is the type of kid who's been pulling off Maradona turns in midfield. So he's a super, super talented lad, but he can get stuck in with the physical side of the game. He's the complete package in terms of his style of play. So you can see why a lot of clubs are after him.
is he like Pogba, Reece?
Similar in the sense that he's the all-round, like he can do a bit of everything.
It's difficult for 16-year-olds, isn't it, to even, because, he's still going to have lots to develop. Maybe his position isn't even decided yet. But I guess, obviously scouts here and there and everywhere are seeing those raw skills and technique that they think.
He has that big sort of rangy physique, so he's physically imposing through his height, but he's very slight, in a way, quite like Pogba. I think that's where the comparison comes more than actual his footballing play, but that's what gives him that wee bit of agility and grace that you maybe just don't associate with the bigger man. But as you say, Nick, I mean, he's 16, so he could, next 2 years he could completely fill out or whatever else, could be a completely different player. But I mean, if he comes to us, I'd be absolutely delighted. The money is massive.
Yeah, and you also think that if he comes to us, is he going to get any game time straight away, or is he better off still staying somewhere else on loan for a year? I don't know. But look, anyway, the club are obviously going all out to try and get him. There's definitely been like some kind of interest from Dortmund. All sorts of clubs are vying in there. So, yeah, we'll have to see where he ends up this summer.
If we do get him, it's to play in the first team very soon.
What, straight away at 17, you think?
Ahead of Gnabry?
Yeah, because I don't know if you've watched him play, but he's got so much talent, this boy, and physically he's already ready. And if you're going to convince him to come to our club ahead of the others, you're going to have to guarantee him a pathway into the first team, because that's what's going to guarantee United getting him over the other teams. You're pretty much promising his dad and his family that we can offer him first team football where the other teams can't.
And that's exactly why a lot of these players have ended up going to Germany, right? Because they just weren't getting the chances in the Premier League. Over there, they give teenagers straight into the first team. But yeah, look, let's see anyway. If that becomes official, we'll definitely chat about him a bit more. I mean, yeah, looking ahead now, we're back on Europa League action against LASK. I think I asked just before we started if any of you knew anything about LASK, because I hadn't had time to do much research into them. Colm, you're a Wikipedia expert on LASK nowadays, aren't you?
Yeah, hold on, let me just refresh that page. LASK are unbeaten in their last 6 matches in the Europa League, winning 4 and drawing 2. Their longest ever unbeaten run in all European competitions. You're welcome.
But yeah, look, they're currently top of the Austrian Bundesliga. I think they came second last season. They're not even they're not even from like Austria. You've heard of kind of Red Bull Salzburg, Rapid Vienna. They're like even historically they're a team you've heard nothing of. So yeah, I guess maybe they've had some money. If we've got any Austrian fans out there, tell us where have LASK come from all of a sudden. But I mentioned last week that they'd beat Alkmaar. I think
RB Leipzig,
maybe Leipzig as well. Yeah. So they've had a couple of big wins there. So obviously not something we need to be wary of. And first leg is away. It's one of those ridiculously early kickoffs, 5:55, that everybody hates. See if you can finish work early that day or what. Again, what for David? What time was that for you out in Canada?
Well, we just changed our clocks this weekend, so we're only 3 hours behind the UK just now. So that'd be 2:55 here on Thursday. So it's not that bad.
Lunchtime pints.
All right,
it's not that bad. Lunchtime pints for a guy who's never touched alcohol in his life. Not the best thing.
Oh yeah, I forgot that.
I think they've got a tiny ground as well, something like only like 15,000 or something. But yeah, there will be a few hundred of our fans at least making that trip. Did see a few messages actually from some of our Austrian United fans who were complaining because they said that there had been talk that maybe the game would be moved to Vienna or somewhere in one of the bigger stadiums, but I think they've decided to keep it where they are. What I understood, their actual home ground is only something like 5,000 or 6,000, and it's they actually moved to play somewhere bigger for the Europa, but it's still only somewhere around 15,000, I think. So yeah, I'm sure it's like biggest game in their history. So yeah, we shouldn't take them lightly. But yeah, I guess a bit of chance for rotation. Because yeah, we've then got the small matter of Spurs away, Jose time again, everybody's favourite on Sunday coming up. I mean, Raees, you've always been the biggest Jose fan in the past. Where do you think he's at with Spurs? Do you think he's failing, or is it just because he's lacking those players at the moment?
No, even when he had them, they didn't look right. I've said for a long time he's finished as a elite level coach. Funnily enough, in patches they look okay in terms of their play, but they're nowhere near as good as when they were under Poch, and they don't look as well coached. They don't look as well drilled. That's a ticking time bomb waiting to go off.
So we're going to win this game?
We should do, but it is Jose, so there might be a psychological block for some of the players in our team, and it is away from home, so you can never fully guarantee that we should go there and walk away with a win. But we're definitely in a better place as a club, from a long-term perspective than they are. 100%. We've got a manager who the fans are behind, we're happy with, etc. At the moment, they're a club in disarray, so we should win this. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 United away victory.
I also just think, whilst we're on Spurs, that seeing Mourinho coming back into the league has been one of the biggest salves for any Ole out person, I think, because he just provides such a stark contrast to Ole. And whilst we maybe were getting frustrated about Ole's, optimism and his kind of dithering post-match conferences and stuff like that, it's just chalk and cheese, and it just makes you remember how god awful it was at the end of the Mourinho reign, and you're just seeing a carbon copy of that play out at Spurs, and it's very soothing to me. It's very soothing to me, and it just makes me feel a lot better about Ole, even without Ole having to do anything necessarily. Even maybe when we're not great, I still feel better about it, because things might not be perfect, but God, they aren't like that again.
And David, are you going to complete the 4? And we're already optimistic going to win this game. I think if all 4 of us are going for a win, then we're definitely going to lose it. But what's your prediction for the Spurs game on Sunday?
Like you guys can't see anything other than a win. Tottenham squad is decimated just now. I've just read today that they lost Bergwijn for the rest of the season as well. That's one of their other attacking outlets gone. So they're at bare bones. I can't see. And actually, I was reading this today. Apparently, Mourinho's been deviating away from his normal style in the last few games, and Tottenham have been quite open, and their games have been kind of end to end as opposed to the usual pragmatic stuff. But you can see him revert to type for the game against us, and just setting with the way he started on the weekend there with 5 centre backs playing. I think their entire back line was just centre halves, one at left back, one at right back, and then one just in front of the two. It was such a defensive looking team, and I'd expect the same from him. So it's just whether or not we can break it down. I mean, I can't see how they can beat us given the way our defence has been playing and the fact that they just don't have an attack almost at all. So I would expect us to win, and I'd maybe expect us to win quite comfortably. So if I'm going to go score prediction, I'll go for us to beat LASK 2-1, and I'll go for us to beat Tottenham 3-0.
No, the only actual weird thing is that, look, we would have gone and played, counter-attack football away in a big game. But Jose is not going to be sending his team out to like openly play against us, to be ready to be hit on the counter at all. Let's see if we come back after that. We'd had a long break, but now, yeah, you're getting us one week after another, and let's see if we can roll on and record again next weekend. I won't promise it, but yeah, we'll try and get back there. Like I say, we're all now Ole in, right? You've burnt your t-shirt, haven't you, Colm?
I maintain my position. We'll look at it, man.
All right. I think, yeah, that's all for this week, boys. Best kind of run we've had for a while. 10 matches since Ole this time last year. Let's see how long we can keep it going. Hopefully it's not going to end anytime soon. Good night for now.
Cheerio.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Good night from me.